Hi, my name's Joseph, and I'm going to be learning Charles Valentin Alkan's Concerto for Solo Piano. I first came across this piece around 20 years ago. It was a forum community that I was a part of, and it was actually a gaming forum, of all things, except they had this one little section that was dedicated to music. It was called the Concert Hall. And in it, there were a bunch of users who frequented it, and they were particularly fond of classical music and classical piano music at that. And they really liked esoteric music, stuff that wasn't really played in the traditional repertoire. And Alkan is one of those composers who hasn't been played a lot. And so his music was there. They had FTP servers that were full of sheet music performances by Marc-Andre Hamelin, who champions this music. And so I came across it that way, and I just instantly fell in love with the piece. It just always sounded right to me. It's a very long piece, but it doesn't sound too long. I enjoy every minute that I listen to it, and it sounds formally correct. I'm glad it's not any longer, and I'm glad it's not any shorter. And one of the more interesting qualities about it is really the premise of the piece. It's a concerto for solo piano. That makes no sense, really. A concerto is this orchestral work where there's a soloist that is usually highlighted throughout the work. So an orchestra is somewhat necessary, from what the definition that I remember. But in this work, it's only for solo piano. So there is no orchestra. How do you have a concerto without an orchestra? Or without something bigger than the single instrument? A concerto for solo piano, on one hand, makes no sense. On the other hand, if you allow it to make sense for a little bit, then there's a lot of interesting things to explore. How do you make it sound like a concerto in the traditional sense, but with only one person? And Alkan really explores those, and I'll probably be talking about it as I learn the piece. But there's that contradiction, really, that one must embrace or humor. It's a bit odd to set out to write a concerto for a solo instrument, or to be played only ever on one instrument. It's kind of like throwing a birthday party and inviting no one else, or starting a board game night, but only play it by yourself. It makes no sense on one hand, but it really fits Alkan, I would say, because he was the type of person, he was a loner, He didn't go out much. He withdrew from social life and performances for many years. He was a bit of a recluse. Maybe he was a lot of a recluse, actually, you would say. And so it kind of fits. I imagine this person that wants to write bigger things, but for whatever reason can't or doesn't want to because of other reasons. And so this is a way of having both parts of it. You can be imaginative on that scale, but still create something that makes sense for you to be the only one to do it, if that makes any sense. And I resonate with that too. I wouldn't say I'm a recluse by any means, but I definitely think the term loner comes to mind often. And I definitely have a mentality of, I'll just do it myself or whatever. I don't want to lean into other people and for things and whatnot. And if there's a way to do something by myself, I'd much prefer to do it that way. And so on that level, this piece resonates with me also. So in short, I've always loved this piece, and I've always wanted to learn it. And I think now is a good time to attempt learning it. And I wanted to document the journey and share it, and share along the way all the things that I just love about this piece, all the little details. So I'll be talking about those in future episodes. I will say this is a very formidable piece. there are probably only a few people in the entire world that could play this piece at the proper tempo with very few mistakes. And so, with that in mind, I will be making some exceptions or alterations. First of all, I'll be playing it at a tempo that is a lot less. I'll be playing it at the quarter note equals 120. And that's about 25% slower. But I need all of that 25% in order to ever humor performing the piece. I arrived at that number by looking at the B major section, which comes up after around 5 or 10 minutes in. And it's probably the most difficult section of the piece. And I could definitely not play it currently. But I saw a glimmer of hope that maybe with a lot of practice I could play it at 120. So hopefully that works out with the rest of the piece. The second and third movements, I don't know what tempo I'll be taking those at, but it'll probably be a 25% reduction if I had to guess, just to keep it consistent, if nothing else. The other concession will be that I'll be learning in chunks and performing it in chunks, uploading chunks, really. I'll never be able to play the whole thing back to back, probably. Or front to back, rather. So I will be learning a chunk and then performing it and talking about it, and I will upload that as a video. And I will do that until I reach the end of the piece. And this will go on. This will take years, I'm guessing. And that's crazy to think about. I don't even know where I'll be in life when I'm done with this process. It could be many years. It could be decades, really. I don't know. Life happens, and I may not be able to practice a lot or for whatever reason and make progress on this piece. But I'm quite certain at this point that I'll always be coming back to this. And so I'm committing to learning this piece or getting to the end of it by the end of my life, hopefully. But you never know. I could die in a car accident and never finish this. And that's weird to think about right now. I could be in a totally different city. I could have a different job. I'm grateful right now that the place where I work has pianos where I'll be recording these chunks. But that could change. In the future, I might have a hard time finding pianos. But, and who knows, maybe I'll be married. Maybe I'll have kids by the time I finish this piece. It's exciting to think about how learning this piece and the journey that will accompany it will go hand in hand. And I'm excited to do each chunk along the way. So without further ado, here is chunk number 1. This includes the beginning of the piece where it introduces a few themes, and I probably won't go into too much detail, or any detail really at this point. I've talked too much about this chunk, but I'll be talking about subsequent chunks in greater detail. So anyways, here's the first chunk. I'll see you next time.